Well, hello, boys and girls. Here we are again, and I just keep on getting like the coolest people to do these things with. This is Best Bet Ed. And if you don't know who Best Bet Ed is, give your head a shake. The guy is one of the best cappers out there, for hockey especially. I started following him when I started capping again. I was listening to him, and I was just so impressed. I love how he does it. He's a great understanding of energy. Watches the games a lot. When we get back to capping again, you better be doing best bet Ed if you really want to make some scratch. The guy he nails. I think he's the best dog capper out there. Freaking nails dogs all the time. Does ballsy. Six.
Don't get too carried away there. I don't want to have to live up to that.
Oh, you will live up to it because you do it all the time and you know it. You're great. But so, anyways, we had Jamie Basco in here. That was fantastic. Yesterday we had John from Off the Wall Hockey. Sorry, I don't know if you watched that, but Off the Wall Hockey. We've had Ranj from Cappers Comparison. I love Ranj, and so I reached out to Best Bet Ed, and we've been trying to find. He's been busy, so we found a time. We decided. We thought about a team, and we still had to do Minnesota. He seems to be a little bit of a fan, so we decided we're going to go with Minnesota. We'll do a little rundown on how they were doing before, what their outlook is for the playoffs coming up, and maybe some a little bit of look into how were turning their season around before all this happened. So Ed, you were watching them there. What are some of the things that you saw about that team that was creating this turnaround that they were into?
I think there's lots of things. I think one of the biggest is just they're playing like a team, right down from ownership to coaching to the players. I mean, they're just understanding one another, and I like what I saw. I mean, their last 10 games they were 7-3-0. I think a lot of their team members are playing the best hockey they have in quite a while, and a lot of that I think comes from when that coaching change happened. I think he's motivating the guys, and they've got a lot of mature guys on their team that are helping with that, and the young guys are stepping up and they're playing for him. So I think it could be a dangerous team if and when we come back.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I saw great energy when Dean Evison took over, like almost immediately. So much so, I was like, can they even keep up this pace? They were playing at such a high pace. They were out skating everybody.
Well, they were playing full 60-minute games, and I think that's key as well. Like these guys just they don't give up, and again, they were playing like a team. You didn't have one or two guys that were on fire, but you had everyone stepping up. And when you and I were chatting before there, I mean, their second, third lines, those guys are playing good hockey. So again, I think a dangerous team. I think their goaltending is where it needs to be. I think, I like what I see when I watch Minnesota play.
Yeah, it seems to me like Dean Evison really grabbed their strengths right away. They got good young legs, and he was starting to play like a kid line of Fiala, Donato, and Joel Eriksson Ecker, Luke Cunnin. He was putting the kids together and just saying, go do what you're going to do. Like, I was watching it.
Yeah, they were having fun.
Yeah, he was letting them make mistakes. He wasn't saying a thing. I didn't necessarily see it, but I know of coaches that have, I can't remember who it was now. It'll come to me. But one particular coach, one of his rules was nobody hangs their head. Nobody hangs their head. The only way I'm going to sit you is if you hang your head. You make a mistake, you get up and you have fun and keep on going. And that's what Dean Evison seemed to bring to this thing, to this team, I find.
Well, and like I said, I think you've got a couple of guys who've been around long enough that will complement that. Like with Zuccarello in the locker room, he's got that kind of work ethic where you don't hang your head. I mean, he's got that work ethic where he's grateful every time he plays a game in the NHL. And he can give these young guys, I think, the guidance that they need to have that right headspace to be a winning team. Evanston, when he was with Washington, he knows what it takes to win, and he knows how to keep a team together. So, yeah, it's good to see. I think they've got good times ahead.
Yeah, I think Dean Evison saw a lot of himself in Zuccarello. I mean, Evison wasn't the highest point producer when he played. Didn't do too bad, though. Had some decent points, but he played that same style of energy type game. But most of all, I think he went in there and said, look, if I'm going to have a team, what's the one player that I want this team to really look like? And I think you nailed it on the head there, where Matt Zuccarello is that guy. Is like, he's here. We paid him a lot of money to come here. He's got an amazing attitude, very positive dude. When talking about when he left the New York Rangers, first of all, it went viral. Lundqvist couldn't even keep back the tears when they asked him about Zuccarello. I mean, that's how much of effect he can have. Now, Lundqvist is an emotional dude, but there hasn't been so many times in his career that he couldn't keep back the tears. He had a deep effect on players for the reason that he was such an encouraging, amazing guy.
Well, and on top of that, though, he likes to win. I know they all like to win, but he's above that. He wants to win every game. He wants to win every shift. And if he can get the other guys thinking that way and the young guys thinking that way, that makes for a dangerous team.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to climb over to tennis here, but one of the greatest tennis players in the world is a guy named Djokovic, and he said one time, he goes, "What motivates me? I love to win more than I hate to lose." And Zuccarello has that attitude.
Absolutely.
He doesn't try to win out of some sort of hate. It's just he loves to win so much because it's so much fun, and he brings that energy to the team. And it seems like Evison came in and tapped into that and said, how can we spread this around this team more and have these people believing themselves like Zook believes in himself? And he, as far as at least for this small window that I watched, he accomplished it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, when we're talking about we have this gap now where they were playing really well, and I've been talking to I talked to some Minnesota fans here, and they're a little concerned that they were on such a high, and now they're going to go through this gap where it's going to be hard to get it going again. Do you see that being a problem there for many?
I don't. I think for Minnesota, along with a lot of other teams, I think this break is. They're going to get guys back to full strength. They're going to have. As you and I are doing this video, there's guys who are in their home countries and they're skating, they're staying in shape. These guys are professionals. It's not like you're dealing with amateurs. So these guys will know how to stay in shape. As far as their headspace goes, I think they're going to come back and they're going to be better than they were before we got halted. If they watch the videos and they watch how they were doing and why they were doing what they were doing, I don't see it being a problem at all. It's going to take, I think, all these guys a couple of games to get their legs underneath them again, for sure. But I like the fact that Minnesota has their mature goaltending. These guys, I don't think the break's going to affect them whatsoever. So, no, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I'm kind of excited. I think we might see some of the best hockey we've seen in a long time because these guys are going to be happy to be playing again. Yeah. And they're going to be, however the format goes, I think it's going to be shortened somehow. So, yeah, who's going to win the Stanley Cup? And let's get ready for next year. It's going to be fast and it's going to be go, go, go.
Yeah, and people have been asking me. I get people messaging me on like still some futures now. Like, what does the playoffs have? And how is this? Who are you going to be looking at for myself? When I see a gap like this or something out of the ordinary happen, I have a tendency to go towards great coaches. Um, this sort of evens out the playing field, as you said, is like everybody's healthy again. Um, there's like you got we were talking before we started here with Eric Stahl. Eric Stahl is a 35-year-old guy. Good. So, talk about attitude, by the way. Could you have a better attitude guy in the room than Eric Stahl? There's another great attitude guy, maybe on a different level, more of a serious nature. Good yin and yang with Zuccarello. But for him to be able to get all of his aches and pains and start off fresh with those legs, I, I think it's a big advantage for Minnesota. In fact, I would say that Minnesota may be one of the most uh, positively affected teams because of this break, because they have guys like Eric Stahl and getting Mikko Koivu back healthy again. I mean, Mikko Koivu is not what he was before, but he's still one of the
Well,
best
Zach
defensive
Breezy, he's
centers in the league.
35 as well, right? So I mean, you've got a few guys that are up there in age.
Yeah,
Yeah, and don't think they're not training right now. Like they're going to probably be in the best shape they've been in a long time when they come back.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, what
Mikko
else are you gonna
Koivu,
what else are you gonna do when you're at home?
Mikko Koivu has been one of the most underrated players in the league for a very long time, and to him have fresh legs, to have a big 6'3" third line center in the playoffs like that, and then you have all these fresh young legs. Like some of these kids might have been getting a little tired. I maybe they most of them had played 80 game seasons, but it's right around this 23, 24. But now you're going to have young kids with very fresh legs and old guys. To me, I don't know. There's something about this team that I think this is going to benefit them over most other teams for the reasons I say. Their best players are older players, and they're going to have fresh legs. And their young guys, um, who were strong beforehand, will probably be lifted up by that quite a bit. I think it's going to be a huge advantage for them.
Well, I think when you did the video on the Rangers, you mentioned that they're a team that's positioned really well when we come back to make a push, and I
Mm-hmm.
think you have to put Minnesota right beside them. Like
Yeah.
I think those are two teams that, yeah, I might as a bit of a long shot to win the whole thing. I wouldn't put it by either one of these teams.
Well, we look at Minnesota. I mean, I think they're going to play the regular season, by the way. I think it's going to be done back in time that they're going to finish the regular season. And they want to because it's huge for the draft. Like, there's a lot of teams out there that are like, this is not fair. Like, we didn't finish the regular season. Now I'm going to be in this draft position where if we would have won, we could have been in that. And that is
Yeah,
huge. That's huge.
absolutely.
So I think they're going to play the regular season. Minnesota, if they can get into the seventh spot, you know, I, I didn't think to put the standings up here, but you're playing possibly a team like Colorado. I would hope not. Then I don't know if I could give Minnesota the lean on that. But who's up at the top there? If they play the Edmonton Oilers, I could see the depth of the Minnesota Wild beating the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, I don't know. You say against Colorado, you think Colorado would have an advantage over Minnesota right now?
Mostly because I just like their defense a lot better, and that top line, McKinnon,
Yeah, I know McKinnon. Yeah, I know.
yeah, McKinnon, Landeskog, and Rantanen all healthy. I don't know if Minnesota's got much to combat that line. That line is, and you say, well, what about McDavid and Draisaitl? Yeah, but Colorado, the Avs have more depth on top of that than the Edmonton Oilers do. Minnesota can kill Edmonton with depth. I don't think they're going to have as easy a time doing that against Colorado uh, as they would. uh, Edmonton. But
It
if
would be
they're
great if you're right and they're going to finish the season and play a regular season. Uh, that would be great. That would be good for hockey for sure.
absolutely, that's ultimately what they want to do, right? I mean, if they absolutely can't, then I imagine then they won't. But I mean, they're going to do everything in their power. And it sounds like things are going to be moving here a lot quicker than. Uh, I'm going to look at the Western Conference here. Who would they play? It's probably they were in. They were already in seventh place, right? They were already in the playoffs,
Yeah.
so they could play the Avs. How many points were they behind? They were only a couple points behind the Predators. If they could move up, oh sorry, they play the Stars. I think Minnesota beats the Stars. I think Minnesota beats the Stars for sure.
It'll be good to see. It'll definitely be good to see. I mean, I think that when Minnesota's playing the way that they were playing before we got stopped, I think that they're the team that could, on the right day, could beat any of these teams.
Right. Oh, you know what? I'm looking at it the wrong way. No, they weren't in. They were just barely
They
out.
were 1 out, weren't they?
Yeah, they were just barely out. They weren't in. I had it the wrong way. Yeah, they were just out. So if they make it in and they play like the only team that I'd really be afraid of is the Avs. Honestly, I think they could even beat the Blues.
I
I
don't
think
know.
they could.
The Blues are the Blues are good.
Yeah, the Blues are great, but I think Minnesota's most susceptible to a big, fast top line like Colorado has, to that one line that they can't do anything against. St. Louis Blues, their
And that's going to
depth.
come down to some goaltending there too. Obviously, I mean,
Yeah,
um,
of course. Yeah, yeah.
if Stalock or Dubnik can stand up, and we briefly talked earlier before we started this about that young goaltender, and I'd like to see him play a little bit more too. So, but if they can get some strong goaltending behind the way they're playing,
They were 2 points back from so they had some work to do, but they were moving up. If they got good, I mean, any team really, if you got really good, if Dubnik goes on a run or something like that, you never know. Any team can really win. Um, I personally, oh no, were they 1 point back? Sorry, 1 point back.
yeah,
One
I think
point back.
1
Yeah,
point.
just 1 point back. Yeah, from Vancouver, Nashville. So tight. That was so tight. Uh, I wouldn't want to play Colorado. I would rather play Colorado than St. Louis if I'm Minnesota.
Now,
Uh,
I don't know if I'm looking at this right, but you've got. Oh, I see. Okay, never mind. I got it. Yeah.
because they would be the bottom seed, and
Yeah.
St. Louis was first. St. Louis was first. It'd be great if you could get up into the first wild card and then play Vegas. I think they could do some damage on Vegas.
I think so too. I think that they could take Vegas.
Yeah, that kind of depth, they could do something against Vegas, and then who knows after that? You never know what's going to happen. But then they play Edmonton or Calgary. Yeah, I mean, you never know. They could really surprise in the West there if they could get somebody like Vegas.
I
And
haven't I haven't looked, because I obviously we haven't been able to place wagers, which has been devastating. Um, but I haven't even looked at what some of the long-term futures are for a team like Minnesota to win outright. I wonder. I'll have to take a look at that.
oh, I think you get some pretty good money on that. It'd be worth throwing $100 on at least or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If you were throwing $100, you got a team running that hot into the playoffs. How many times have we seen it? A team running hot into the playoffs, and they just like St. Louis. St. Louis was running hot right into the playoffs.
Well, and in St. Louis, obviously the goaltending was a factor there, and that's why I'd like to see that young guy Capo, I think is what they call him. But
Yeah,
I'd like to see him play, and um, he could be that young goaltender for Minnesota that could help them, right?
Yeah, he's pretty young at 23, but man, did he look good.
Yeah,
He did look
confident,
good. It was a
very
small
confident
window,
guy.
but he looked good. Right now, the goaltenders in this league, my gosh, coming up in this league right now is probably one of the greatest uh, young wave of goaltenders we've seen. Shesterkin and Carter Hart and that Kaukinen or whatever. Almost like a lot of teams have got some really solid. What is it? Merzlikins in Columbus.
Yeah.
Some really solid goaltenders coming up. Well, what I think for the future of Minnesota, I'm not so sure about. But for this year, I think you're right. I think they could really make a decent run. Um, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with guys like Galchenyuk in the offseason, who they have to sign. Um, the idea that they were trading Parise makes me think that they're looking towards at least a retool, um, if not a rebuild in the future. So this year would be one of their big years to do it.
And what do you think they're going to do with Koivu? Because this is his last year, right? And then he's an
unrestricted free agent. Yeah, I think they're going to offer him about 2 to 2 point. He's 37. He's really getting up there now.
He's going to, he's going to be playing hard.
Yeah, I think they'll offer him $2 million, somewhere around there. 1-year contracts from here on out until he decides to retire. Right now, fortunately for Mikko, that's the biggest. That's what we were going to talk about. They need in the future. They need a number one center. Need a number one center right away.
And some depth in their defense.
Absolutely, the two biggest things that they have. The good news is they have 2 first-round picks in this draft coming up. So hopefully they can do. They got Pittsburgh's. Because of what's his name? I always forget his name. Who did they trade to Pittsburgh? The winger. I always forget his name. They got a first-round pick from him. They were going to trade him for Phil Kessel, and Kessel turned it down.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. I'm just trying to see if I can pull it up here.
I guess I could just look up Pittsburgh,
Jason Zucker.
Zucker, yeah. They traded Jason Zucker, got that first-round pick. So you see, they're kind of retooling, trading Zucker. What was going on with Zucker, by the way? Every coach, every general manager tried to trade that dude. There's sad to be another. These were room problems that they were having. It seems like they were having room problems. And
so not a good guy in the locker room.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. We went to Pittsburgh, and there seemed to be a little bit of an issue there. Anyways, I have a feeling they're going to trade. They're going to sign Galchenyuk. I just have a feeling Evason thinks they can work with him, and they need a center so bad. They need center so bad that I think they'll try to do something with them and sign him up for 2 to 3 years at the money he's already making, like $5 million. Mikko Koivu, about 2. 1-year contract, and then they've got Luke Cunnin and Jordan Greenway to sign up, probably for $2 million.
No socks, Greenway.
No socks, right? You were going to mention that.
No, I just thought it was funny. I was watching a video, and I guess he does not wear socks in his skates, and he never has, and he just doesn't like the feel of it. So, no socks, Greenway is what I'm going to call him.
He's not the only guy I've heard that did that. But I just don't know how anybody could do that. Of course, I never played with the $5,000 pair of skates that these guys played with either.
They're custom molded to his feet, so yeah, they're probably pretty comfy.
Just fit perfectly.
I like that Greenway. I mean, there's a young guy who I think is good for Minnesota. They're paying him under $1 million, and then next year he's a restricted free agent. But he's a big boy. I'd like to see him stay with Minnesota for a while, actually.
Oh, they'll sign him up.
Yeah.
6'3" guys that can score. Those are the kind of players that put you above. That gives you something special the other team doesn't have. Jordan Greenway will be signed up to about probably 2.5 to 3 million for a couple of years. And then they got Luke Cunnin, who's been taking a while. Cunin or Cunnin? That has been he's been progressing very well. They'll sign him up. Those are the big guys. If Luke Cunin can be that center that they're looking for, Jordan Greenway keeps on improving the way
Yeah,
he
because
is.
Kunin, he's right wing and center right now, right? But he's what, third or fourth line center?
Yeah, ultimately they like to play him second line, and then
Yeah.
Joel Eriksson Ek can replace Miku Koivu's defensive big center type thing. Now you're talking about some depth at center that isn't too bad. And then, of course, Kevin Fiala, the way he's breaking out right now. They may end up not being as bad as they are, but they have a lot of question marks at the moment. And I think hopefully they hit on those first round picks that they have this year to get some depth, especially on the D side. Brad Hunt is your sixth defenseman. He's not. He's 31-year-old, barely makes it in the league. On a lot of teams, he wouldn't even be on an NHL roster, and you don't have anything behind him. They're going to be signing some free agents this year. We were talking about TJ Brody possibly.
Yeah, I haven't really taken the time to look much on their non-roster defense. If there were some guys who are coming up who might look good, but you were saying that you did, and nothing really jumped out at you there.
No, in their prospects, they're pretty slim. I think they're going to have to use some of their money to pick up a defenseman this year if they can. I like TJ Brody, and I think they could get TJ Brody if Winnipeg doesn't sign him.
How old is Brody now? He's
30-ish, somewhere around there,
30-ish.
29, 30. Yeah, yeah. They're going to have to sign him for 5 years at 5 or 6 million. But I think they have to if they really want to make this team. If they want to do a retool instead of a rebuild, they're going to have to add to this defense a lot more. Because if they had injuries, they're not making the playoffs. If they get injuries to Dumba, Spurgeon, or something like that, with this lineup, they can't make the playoffs. There's just no way. I can't see it.
Hopefully we'll know soon.
Yeah. Well, I think we better finish her off here. We've been talking lots, which I always tend to do when I get these things because I love talking.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk for a long time about this team, but I appreciate you having me on. Really do.
We will. If you like it, I like it. We'll do it again, my friend. I'm going to keep this channel going like this. I really enjoy it. So again, Best Bet Ed, like I told you, knows his shit. When hockey starts up again, go over there and just subscribe to it now. Subscribe and hit the bell here too. Go over there and subscribe right now. Be ready because he's going to bring you some killer capping when it starts. I can just promise you that. Thanks for coming over, buddy. Have a great. Everybody,
take care.
lots of love to you. Take care.
Talk to you soon.